Once upon a time, there was an extraordinarily beautiful princess named Mahanur. Her beauty was so unique that no charm in the world could compare to it. But her pride and arrogance had grown to such an extent that she had surpassed even the devil himself. She refused to accept any king or prince as her husband, no matter how noble or handsome he might be. Her father, the king, was deeply troubled by this habit of hers. At last, fed up with her stubbornness, he invited all well-known and unknown kings, princes, nobles, and wealthy men to his palace one final time so that the princess might choose one of them as her husband. The next morning, after breakfast, the grand royal garden of the palace was filled with a long line of princes dressed in colorful royal attire. Each stood with pride and elegance, wearing shining crowns and fragrant clothes. Velvet carpets were spread across the garden. The air was filled with the sweet fragrance of flowers, and the soft sound of shehnais, royal flutes, echoed between the palace trees. The princess, adorned in a royal dress with golden bangles, walked through them with her head held high in pride. She glanced at each suitor from head to toe and then turned her face away with disdain. When her eyes fell on the first prince, who was a bit overweight, she laughed and mocked. "Why would I want this barrel of beer?" The second prince was very thin, as if the wind could blow him away. The princess giggled again and said, "Why would I want this dry wooden stick?" The third prince had a pale complexion, as though he had been ill for many days. The princess sneered. "He looks sick. I don't want him either." The fourth prince was rather plump, with red and rosy cheeks. The princess mocked him as well. "Is this a prince or a rooster?" "I don't want him either." But when her eyes finally reached the last prince in the line, her steps halted and her heart began to pound. This was Prince Shahzaman, handsome and striking. His presence carried a natural authority and an irresistible charm that could shatter anyone's pride. His eyes reflected wisdom and tranquility. It was as though he was not only handsome, but also intelligent and kind-hearted. The princess stared at him, trying to find some flaw, some excuse to reject him too. Yet the more she observed, the more unsettled she became. Shahzaman's simplicity and grace touched her heart for a moment, but soon her arrogance clouded her judgment once again. She stood tall, tossed her head proudly, and declared with disdain, "I do not want this worthless one either." Hearing this, all the princes left, disappointed. The king was furious and roared in anger. "Now I will teach you a lesson, you arrogant girl. Tomorrow I shall marry you to the very first beggar or street singer who passes by." And so it happened. The very next morning, a young man appeared near the palace. His clothes were old and torn, his long hair fell upon his shoulders, and his thick red beard covered most of his face. Standing beneath the palace windows, he began to sing. When his song ended, the palace doors opened. He was brought inside, and to the princess's shock, she was married off to that beggar on the spot. The princess cried, screamed, and protested bitterly, but no one listened to her. The king paid no attention to the princess's screams and threats. He handed the groom 5 gold coins and said, "Take her away from my sight, and never let me see either of you again." And so the princess, who once flaunted herself before crowns and thrones, was handed over in tears by fate to an unknown beggar. The groom quietly took her away. The princess, who once slept on golden beds, now walked barefoot, heartbroken and bewildered alongside a stranger. Her heart was shattered, but the young man's gentle nature, calm voice, and kind behavior stirred a faint hope within her. Along the way, they passed through a dense forest where sunlight filtered down through the branches. The princess looked around in wonder and asked with a smile, "Whose forest is this?" Her husband paused and gently replied, "It belongs to Prince Shahzaman, the very man you called worthless and rejected yesterday." The princess's steps faltered, but she remained silent. A little further on, lush green fields stretched out like a carpet upon the earth. The princess asked again, "Whose fields are these?" Her husband replied, "They too belong to Prince Shahziman, whose heart you scorned for a petty reason." Soon they reached a beautiful city with tall palaces, bright streets, and bustling markets. The princess's amazement grew. She asked once more, "And this city? Who does it belong to?" Her husband smiled and answered, "This too belongs to Prince Shahziman." Now regret welled up in the princess's heart. She thought to herself, "How foolish and arrogant I was. He truly was handsome, wise, and wealthy. I could have been so happy with him." At last, they arrived at a desolate, ruined settlement where broken huts stood in silence. The husband stopped before one of them. The princess exclaimed in surprise, "What is this place?" In a calm voice, he replied, "This was once my home, and now it is yours too." The princess's face darkened with sorrow. Tears filled her eyes, and hunger made her lips tremble. With unsteady steps, she entered the hut. There were no rich carpets, no golden plates, no perfumes, no servants, no dining tables, not even a fire in the hearth. Now it was her task to light it. She had to knead the dough and cook the bread. The smoke burned her eyes, and when the cooking was done, it was she who had to wash the dishes as well. The next morning, the sun's rays filtered through the cracks of the hut, waking her. There were no velvet curtains before her, no breakfast laid in silver trays. Her husband brought her an old, rough cloth. The princess, who had always worn silks, was astonished at the sight of the coarse, colorless garment. She was also given a simple, clay-like scarf. Her husband said gently, "Today you must learn a new task." After she cleaned the hut, he showed her some hard wooden twigs and said she must weave baskets from them. The princess tried to bend a twig with her delicate fingers, but its sharp end pricked her skin. A drop of blood appeared, and she cried in pain. "I can't do this," she sobbed. But her husband remained silent. He bandaged her wound and said, "Every skill begins with a wound." That evening, he brought her an old shirt and said, "Sew this." The princess pushed the needle into the cloth, but as feared, the needle pricked her finger again. Blood came out and tears streamed from her eyes. The life of comfort and luxury she had once known was now teaching her pain, labor, and patience. The next morning, her husband brought a heavy basket filled with beautiful clay pots. He said, "Today you must go to the market. Learn to sell these." The princess's knees trembled. The journey from the palace's bright halls to the dusty market was the greatest trial of her pride. She placed the basket on her head, lowered her eyes, and silently set out for the city. The market's noise, crowds, and shouting were strange and frightening to her. But her sad eyes, simple appearance, and natural beauty touched the hearts of the people. Women spoke to her kindly, children gathered around her, and men looked at her in astonishment. By noon, she had sold every pot in her basket. Just then, a drunken young man staggered toward her. Smiling shamelessly, he said, "Oh, beautiful girl, will you share a cup of wine with me?" Anger flashed in the princess's eyes. In a single instant, her delicate hands turned to lightning, and she struck him across the face with a fierce slap. The young man stumbled and fell, and the people around stared in astonishment. That evening, when she returned with her empty basket, she stood before her husband. For the first time, a proud smile appeared on the princess's face. She had protected her honor, but the next day brought a new trial. She went to the market again with a basket full of pot. A drunken hunter, riding his horse recklessly, lost control and trampled her basket as he passed by. The pots shattered with a loud crash. The princess sank to the ground in the dust, tears streaming down her cheeks. She returned home empty-handed and broken-hearted. Her husband opened the door, and this time his face did not carry its usual gentle smile. In a soft but firm voice, he said, "This work is not for you. Come, I will find you work in the palace washing dishes. The cook there is an old friend of mine." Tears welled in the princess's eyes for a moment, but she said nothing. She simply bowed her head and went along. It was the very same palace that belonged to Prince Shahziman, the one she had once called worthless and rejected. The palace kitchen was vast and bustling. Fires blazed in the ovens, steam clouded the windows, and the clatter of pots echoed everywhere. The princess spent her days quietly washing dishes. Her delicate hands grew covered in blisters, but she had stopped complaining. A week passed. Every day she washed dishes, cleared food, and returned each evening exhausted to her hut. But one night, the palace was transformed. Lights shone everywhere, colorful drapes hung across the halls, fragrant garlands filled the air, and servants rushed about. Soft whispers carried the same news. Prince Shaziman was about to be married, but no one knew who the bride was. As the princess prepared to leave, a kind woman from the kitchen smiled and tucked some scraps of meat, halwa, and sweets into her pocket. She whispered, "Wait, child. At least look at the grandeur of the great hall tonight. After all, it is the prince's wedding." The princess, now a little stronger from life's hardships, hesitated but then peered through a crack in the great hall's door. Inside, music played, candles glowed, and elegantly dressed guests laughed and smiled. Just then, the prince himself stepped out. So handsome that it was hard to look away. And he was none other than the very worthless prince. He turned to the kitchen woman and said, "Your beautiful friend must pay the price for her curiosity. She shall dance with me." Taking the princess by the hand, he led her into the hall. Music swelled, and every eye turned toward them as they began to dance. But within moments, scraps of meat and sweets began to fall from her pockets, one by one. They hit the floor with little thuds, and the entire hall burst into laughter. Some servants doubled over. Some princesses covered their faces and stepped back. The princess's face burned crimson with shame. Tears filled her eyes, and she ran toward the door. But the prince gently, yet firmly, stopped her. He led her to a quiet, private room where only the two of them stood. The princess's breath was quick, her heart racing. The prince looked into her eyes softly and said, "Do you still not recognize me, my love? I am your husband, the one who sang in the street, the hunter, and yes, the very worthless prince." The princess stood stunned in silence. The prince continued, "Your father knew everything. It was with his help that I taught you this lesson, so your pride would break and your heart could learn to see the world." The princess wanted to hide from the shame, fear, and joy overwhelming her, but love conquered all. She threw herself into her husband's chest and wept like a child. The prince held her quietly and whispered, "My queen, from now on, there will be no sorrow." At that moment, the palace maidens rushed in and carried the princess away. They dressed her in the royal gown she was truly worthy of. Now, all eyes were on her. The same girl who once sold pots, who once washed dishes in the palace, was today the prince's queen. Some guests had tears in their eyes, others clapped with joy. And so, the tale reached a beautiful ending and the beginning of a new life.